With the release of Gonzalo and also Garjamada into Rise of Kingdoms, the meta for legendary commanders has certainly shifted, not only for ranged commanders, but also for cavalry, infantry, and for the archer commanders. So in today's video, I'll be remaking my investment tier list for legendary commanders to make sure that you can get the most value for your gold head. So if you're looking to make investments within the near future into any commanders, I recommend sticking around till the end of the video. Now, as always with an investment tier list, I want everyone to know that this tier list is not based on their current performance. That isn't really a big concern in my investment tier list. Rather, I'm looking at late game and end game value. What do these commanders want to bring within the next 2 to 3 years, rather than within the next 6 to 8 months? Maybe your commander is really good right now, but in the next 2 to 3 years, I don't see them being particularly good. So that's the point of an investment tier list. And in today's video, I'm going to be much more scrutinous with the commanders. I'm not going to be as loose as I was with other tier lists, where some commanders probably got higher ranks than they deserve. So you'll notice a lot of commanders will be ranking much lower in today's tier list compared to my older tier list. And that's also because of a very quick changing meta recently. There have been a lot of much stronger commanders that have been releasing that are pushing some other commanders a little bit further out of the meta. So I'm going to be definitely a little bit more harsh on commanders, trying to make sure you can really choose those absolute best commanders. Now, with that out of the way, let's switch over to the tier list. So now here is our tier list, and you can see we've got 5 total tiers. We're going to start off at the top. These are meta investments. These are the best commanders in the game to invest in right now. Absolutely the strongest possible. They get tons of kills and they trade very good, and they've got a lot of future potential. Good investments are commanders who are certainly solid investments. If you don't really want meta investments, or you already have most of them, good investments are very good secondaries to meta investments, very good other options for a second or third march of one troop type, and all round will still give you quite a bit of value. Possible investments are commanders which are not as amazing. I mean, they have some use cases, some accounts they work with, but often you would skip over these commanders. Would not invest, they're just not really good. I mean, in most situations, they're not that good, they're often very niche, and most players won't get much value from them, and never invest are commanders that just pretty much absolutely suck always. Now, starting off today's tier list, we're going to begin with Gorgo, and she's just a good investment. She used to be a meta investment, but I'd say because we've seen more archer commanders, and soon we're going to see stronger cavalry, and after that, even more infantry, I don't know if Gorgo is going to stick around that meta tier. She's really good with Larche, but she's mainly a garrison. Her garrison capability has kind of gone down since the Shurban Nepal, and also her open field strength will get replaced slowly as we see more and more smite commanders. Ethelflaed, I mean, she's a meta investment just because she is free, but if we talk literal, like, strength-wise, she's probably, I would not invest. I mean, she's definitely not that strong, and she's not an overpowered commander. But because she's free, she's just going to get the meta investment. Nevsky is also going to go into good investments. This is the same as last time. I was tempted to move him down to possible, but I don't think that's really fair. He is still a very strong commander. I think even once we see new calves, he'll still be pretty strong. But keep in mind there are new calves around the corner, which is why I'd say right now Nevsky is only a good investment. Alex is going to stay at the possible investment tier. He is actually still pretty good with Lao Che, so if you want him as an early game investment, if you want to get an early game legendary commander, he's still a fairly solid option. Joan Prime is going to go into good investments. Usually she'll be a meta invest, but because of the fact there are new cavalry commanders going to be coming soon, I wouldn't recommend investing in her until we see what these new commanders can do. Attila is probably going to be a would not invest for most players unless you are a whale, because he is kind of outdated nowadays. Cao Cao is a would not invest unless you're a whale in KVK1. His relic is okay, but it's not OP. Chandragupta also probably a would not invest. Once again, we are seeing new cavalry commanders coming soon, and he's also quite outdated. Charlemagne, I mean, never invest. Henry is going to go into possible investments. He's no longer at that good investment tier because there are just stronger archer commanders now, and even though he's still fairly good on the open field, I don't see that lasting for much longer, and I reckon over the next year and a half, I'll probably be replacing him from my murder ball. Charles Martel is a would not invest. He's a gold key commander, which is fair, But besides early Season of Conquest value, you will move on to better infantry commanders quite quickly. The two new siege commanders, Gonzalo and Gajamada, I'm going to put them both together in the good investment tier. I've seen some ridiculous reports out of these commanders. I've seen some very, very strong trades. And if you can get them in the right situation, they are very powerful. If you have the right gear, they're also really good. But I'm not going to put them in the meta because they have a lot of limitations by just being range commanders. And over time, maybe this will change. Maybe some of these limitations will go. But for now, I'd say these limitations are still evident. I'm going to put Zulang in meta invest. I mean, he's still a very, very strong archer commander. He's still one of, if not the best in the game. And he's worth every gold head. CJ is going to go into a would not invest here. You probably don't want to get him nowadays. Even though he's got a bit of strength on the open field, he is probably going to fall off completely within the next infantry cycle as we see more commanders. I'm going to put really all the gathering commanders into never invest. You don't want to use your generic gold heads on them because they're just there to gather and you can get them for free. Constantine is a would not invest. Besides being a pretty good garrison and also Canyon commander, he is pretty much useless on the open field. So unless you're really into Canyon or you're a really, really big garrison player, he is not a good investment for you. And the only reason he is in would not invest is because he is only good for those two different game modes. Same thing with Gilgamesh, he's only really a good rally against Xeno garrisons, which we don't really see much nowadays, so he's definitely not really one of the stronger investments anymore. Ashurbanipal is going to be a good investment. His AoE is solid, his single target damage is also pretty good if you are especially not hitting anyone else, so he's really good with commanders like Boudica Prime, who can kind of boost his skill damage to a higher level. YSS is going to go into never invest. I mean, nowadays he's not a meta garrison commander and he's not good on the open field. Xeno is also going to go into never invest. I would say nowadays she has fallen out of the garrison meta. There are just better options. And even though her with Gorgo is pretty good right now, you've got better options like Constantine and even like Heraclius, who not only have better investment potential, especially with Heraclius, but are not going to be as outdated and also as low on the garrison meta. Edward of Woodstock is going to go into a never invest as well. I mean, he's quite a weak commander, his skills are very average at best, and he has a lot of limitations. El Cid is a would not invest. I mean, he's got 3 gold heads obviously, but he is also quite a limited archer commander. Frederick, I mean, never invest. He's got really no strengths. Khan is going to go into would not invest. I mean, he's got some strengths if you do have him maxed out right now with his museum relic, but he isn't your go-to choice. Hannibal Barca would never invest in him. I'm going to put Harold maybe at like the bottom of possible investment. He's not the best commander anymore. Maybe I'd even put him in the would not invest at the top of that tier. He's just not the best anymore. There are stronger commanders out there. And yes, he is still pretty good at city popping, but that's most of his kit at the moment. Honda is a possible investment. He's not a would not invest. He's definitely not a good invest, but he's a pretty good commander to grab sometimes if you want a more generic march where you can run any commander. And that's where Honda can work quite well. Bertrand is going to be into a would not invest here. He's not a very good rally. He's an average field commander. YSG, I'd still say he's a possible investment purely for his early game value as well, like Alexander the Great, and he still works really good with commanders like Herman Prime, Henry, Boudica, even Zulang, so he's still got his place in the meta. Lao Che, I mean, he's just a meta investment. He's one of, if not the best infantry commanders in the game. Crazy AoE, crazy smite damage, just all around really powerful. Suleiman absolutely sucks. Cyrus, going down from the possible investment to the would not invest. He is nowhere near as strong as he used to be. Yes, his debuffs are still really good, but they don't make up for the severe lack of damage and lack of stats in his kit compared to a lot of meta commanders. Guan is a possible investment nowadays. He's probably like one of the 4th, 5th best infantry commanders, and he's only really good if you already have him unlocked. Otherwise, I wouldn't really go out of my way to expertise a Guan Yu unless you really, really need him for a 2 or 3 March infantry murder ball. CBO is probably still a meta investment nowadays. He's still really, really strong. His debuff is still game breaking, and I don't really think that's going to be replaced too soon, so he's probably going to stick around that meta investment tier, but keep in mind, I would max Lao Che well before I would max a CPO. I'm going to put Pakal into the would not invest, similar reasons to Harold, only really good at city popping and not the best rally anymore. Leonidas never invests, he's just not very good anymore with Guan because he's just too outdated and too weak. Herman Prime, meta investment, one of the best archer commanders in the game. You don't even have to expertise him. 5551 is perfectly fine. His expertise is only good in 1v1 battles, really, because when you leave combat, the poison stacks reset. So Herman Prime, very cheap investment, very strong investment, and one of the best archer commanders. Nebu is a possible investment. He's pretty good nowadays. I mean, he's not the worst, but he's certainly nowhere near the best commanders, so he's pretty worthy of that tier. Jadwiga is a never invest. Even with the upcoming Cavs, I'd say she's going to lose more value, as this new Cav garrison, who we predict to see, is probably going to work better with Jan Ziska. Boudica Prime is probably still a good investment. I'd say similar reasons to Nevsky. She's kind of being pushed out the meta, and I think the same thing with Nevsky. He'll be pushed out the meta soon. So Boudica Prime, she's not a number one go-to commander. Most newer players would rather get Herman or Zulang before they pick up a Boudica. She's only really good if you're moving towards 2 Archer Marchers. Jan Ziska's going to go into possible investments because I'm going to predict we see another Cav Garrison very soon, and that's obviously pretty good for him. And also he's got some usage on the open field due to just really high damage, plus he is a really good Garrison right now, so he's actually got a bit of investment value, and I'd say he's a possible investment for the future. Julius Caesar is probably also going to go into possible investments because we're seeing a few faster raid cycle commanders like Gorgo. Then I'm going to say he's got some potential for pretty good value, and commanders like Hao Bing and Zhang Yu have worked pretty well with him, and I think Lilith might be continuing that trend of faster rage cycle commanders over the next year or two, and Julius Caesar just works really well with them. Lubu, never invest, can't even access him. Mehmed, possible investment, very same reason as Honda, just really good generic commander who can work with really any march. Minamoto, also possible investment. There are new Cavs coming soon, like I've said many times, so he's no longer at the good investment tier. He was already at the end of that tier, probably going to move down anyways. So I'd say it's pretty fair that you can still invest in him and spend that money if you're willing to, and he's still going to be pretty good, but you shouldn't really need to go out of your way nowadays to get Minamoto, since there are a lot other stronger commanders who are more worthy of your time and even just your equipment. Mulan is a would not invest. She's really good with Trajan as a support march, but we've seen Trajan gradually fall out of the meta because there haven't been really any amazing support commanders with him, and for that reason Mulan is also going to take a hit to her effectiveness. Ditto, she's just a would not invest. I mean, she's an okay garrison nowadays, pretty solid, probably the best archer garrison available, but she's also not a game-breaking garrison, and there is no real massive potential for her in the future, though we can kind of say that since there is no Cav rally coming up next, she should be pretty okay in the position that she is currently in. Ragnar is going to go into never invest, not a big fan of him at all. Ramses also is going to go into never invest, moving down from would not invest, because he's pretty much just fallen out of the meta. There are a lot more stronger archer commanders available, and with the addition of more Cavs coming soon, I think it's going to pretty much solidify the death of Ramses. Richard is also a never invest. Nowadays, there are a ton of commanders which affect healing, and also he's just very outdated, to the point where anyone that runs Richard pretty much guarantees a bad trade. Saladin is a would not invest. I mean, he's similar to the effectiveness of Khan in Season of Conquest, which is crazy to say, just because they're both really outdated commanders who don't trade particularly well anymore. His Museum Relic, I mean, it's decent, but he isn't at that standard where he used to be, and I don't think he's ever really going to go back there. Flavius is a would not invest, probably right at the end. He's almost one of the weaker infantry garrison options with Gorgo, but he can still work and he still does have his use cases. Moctezuma, never invest. Tariq, he's a possible investment nowadays. I don't know if he's a good invest, I wouldn't really say he is, because of the fact that he's kind of becoming outdated, and he's also a rally commander, and infantry will probably see a rally commander next, so there's a chance he gets pushed out of the meta, and I think that it's pretty fair to say he is a possible investment. I'm going to put Hao Bing into good invest. Real simple reason is he is just a good investment. Like Nevsky, they're both kind of risky nowadays, and also Joan, because there are new Cavs coming soon, but he works pretty good in the current meta, and I wouldn't say he's going to lose all his value when new commanders release. Even if there is this ridiculously overpowered Cav commander, Hao Bing is also going to be fairly strong, and also does work pretty good with Julius Caesar for what that's worth. Heraclius, possible investment, is a really generic and powerful garrison commander who can work in pretty much any situation. Sargon, I'm going to put into possible investments as well. He is not the most powerful infantry commander, we pretty much all know that, but he can trade fairly decently, and in some situations he's able to hold his own quite well, and get quite a few kills and debuff quite well at the same time. Justinian, also a possible investment, one of the better Cav rallies, even just one of the better rallies in general, and overall is just a fairly decent investment. He's good on the field, he's a very strong rally, and he probably won't be losing too much value over the upcoming updates. Thormos is a would not invest. I mean, he's a strong commander with his double relic, but he's not a meta-breaking commander. Pyrus also would not invest in him because, once again, strong commander with his relic, but not really meta-breaking. I'm going to put both of the other ranged commanders, Margaret and Barbara, into would not invest purely because there are two new stronger ranged commanders, and it's really difficult to effectively run two ranged marches, especially since most people don't have the gear for it, and it's definitely a bigger commitment. So they're probably not as amazing as they used to be nowadays, and they're not really your number one priority. So Margaret and Barbara, I wouldn't really invest in them, but they're still an option if you want two siege marches, and really they're your only option. A Minotauri is a never invest nowadays. Artemisia with a Minotauri is not a meta march anymore, and she's not really a good garrison at all, and you need to expertise her, which is really expensive. Takeda is just a would not invest for the same reasons as Attila, fairly average commander overall, and he is losing quite a bit of value in the current meta, even though they do kind of work pretty well together. Theodora, never invest, there are just a lot more stronger and better city garrison options. Artemisia, she's actually still a possible investment. She's pretty good with Boudica, and her skills are pretty good in KVKs like the Siege of Orleans, where you can take a few points off them. She also does actually probably have a bit more value left with the Boudica Prime, which is why I would say she's worthy of possible investments. Tamaris is going to go into would not invest, probably towards the top of the tier. She's pretty good with Herman Prime, but their skills can kind of clash, which may lead to some poison stacks being almost removed and deleted, which, depending on what you want, could be a good thing for the extra damage, or a bad thing because maybe you just want the debuff. Trajan is actually still going to go into possible investment, even though he is falling out of the meta gradually. He still has some usage in nowadays, and I'd say he's still going to be one of the better support commanders over the coming years, so he's probably worth the possible investment, and if there is a new support commander at some point in the future, he will also gain a lot more value then. William is also going to go into possible investments, once again, because we are seeing new cav commanders soon. I wouldn't invest in him right now. Once we see new cav commanders, we may see these commanders move up tiers, like Nevsky might go to meta, or maybe even move down tiers depending on how strong these cavs are, but I can't recommend people right now to really invest in cavalry commanders until we see what they may do. Then we have our friend Zhang Yu. He's going to go into possible investments as well. He's still pretty good nowadays. He's still a very good primary to Nevsky. He's still a decent primary to even commanders like William, but he is also gradually falling out of the meta. So over the next year and a half to 2 years, he'll probably move down into the would not invest tier. Finally, Wu Zetian is a never invest because she is pretty much just useless nowadays. So now here is the final tier list in order. Joan is meant to be a little bit higher, and you might be thinking, why on earth do I have no calves in meta investment? I really do want to justify this so no one gets too angry at me. And it's really just because I don't really want people to invest in calves right now until we see the new cavalry commanders. It's as simple as that. It's very risky to kind of invest in them. We don't know which calves will lose value and which calves will gain value. So you might as well be safe rather than sorry, which is why I'd say right now, calves, yeah, they're good investments. They're probably still going to hold value after these new commanders, but they're not absolute meta. You'd probably right now rather build an infantry march or an archer march while you wait and see what these new calves do, instead of building a cavalry march. So unless you absolutely need to build a cav march or absolutely need a specific cav commander, I would skip them until we see these new cav commanders and what they're capable of, what their kits do, and their best pairing. So for now, I don't recommend really investing in any cavalry commanders unless you absolutely need to, and once we see the new calves, I promise some of these commanders will go up a tier, and maybe possibly some will go down, depending on how strong these new cavalry commanders will be. Other than that, I've organized the meta investment tier, the good investment tier, and the possible investment tier in my order of opinion, from the best commander of that tier down to the worst. So I think the best of meta invest, it's probably Lao Che or Zhu Lang, and then it goes Herman, then it goes Scipio, and then Ethelfled, and then it just continues down the list in that form until the would not invest, where you kind of only choose these commanders if you really need them for your account, and never invest, I will just pretty much never get them. So now that we've made it to the end of today's video, I just want to ask you guys for a very small favor, and that is, tell me what you think of the tier list. Do you think I was a little bit too harsh on some commanders, or do you think that it was a pretty good idea, for example, to put Nevsky down a tier, just because there are new calves coming soon and we want to see what will happen with them. Let me know in the comments down below. If you guys don't like it, I'm happy to change up the tier list next time where that doesn't really affect my judgment. But if you think that it was a good idea, also let me know, because then I'll be happy to keep commanders in the same positions and change it depending on when the new commanders are due. So if you're interested in more tier lists, or you just want to tell me some feedback about this list, I'm very happy to read all of your comments. Now, I just want to say thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.